The crystal wine glass was 3 inches from Dae-jung Choi's lips when Keisha's hand shot across the table and knocked it from his grip. It shattered against white marble. Red liquid spread like blood across the floor. The dining room exploded into chaos. 8 men jumped to their feet. Kwon, the head of security, had his weapon half-drawn before Dae-jung raised one hand. Silence crashed down like a guillotine. Every eye locked on Keisha. The black American maid who'd just committed what looked like career suicide. Or actual suicide, depending on how the next 60 seconds played out. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She could feel sweat beating at her temples. But she didn't look away from Dae-jung's dark eyes. Those eyes that had watched men beg for mercy and shown none. "It smells like almonds," Keisha said. Her voice didn't shake. That surprised her. "Don't drink it." Dae-jung stared at her for 3 seconds that stretched into eternity. Then he leaned forward. Inhaled near the spilled wine. His expression shifted. Just barely. But Keisha saw it. "Kwon," Dae-jung said quietly. "Secure the room. No one leaves." The guards moved like wolves. Doors locked. Windows sealed. The 4 guests started shouting in Korean. Keisha didn't understand the words, but she understood fear. She'd just saved a man's life. Or destroyed her own. Maybe both. Now, if you're wondering how a housekeeper from Washington, D.C. ended up in a Seoul penthouse detecting poison in wine meant for one of Korea's most dangerous men, you need to understand something. Keisha Brownlow never planned any of this. 3 months ago, she was cleaning toilets in a hotel, drowning in student debt, eating ramen for dinner. Her grandmother had been dead 5 years. Howard University was an abandoned dream. Survival was the only plan that mattered. But before we get to that, before we talk about how she got here, let me ask you something. If this story is already pulling you in, if you want to know how a broke college dropout ends up saving a crime boss from assassination, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because what happens next, the truth about why Keisha can smell poison, why her grandmother really died, and what Dae-jung offers her after this moment, you won't want to miss it. I promise you, the payoff is worth it. Now, let's get back to that dining room. The wine sample came back 20 minutes later. Kwon whispered the results in Dae-jung's ear. Potassium cyanide. Concentrated enough to stop a heart in under 3 minutes. Keisha watched from the corner where they'd placed her. Not restrained. Not free. Somewhere in between. The youngest guest, a man in his 30s with nervous hands, had gone pale. He kept glancing at the doors. At the guards. At Dae-jung. That's when Keisha knew. She could see guilt like other people saw weather. It rolled off him in waves. Dae-jung saw it too. He always saw everything. He nodded to Kwon. 2 guards grabbed the young man. Jinwoo Park, Keisha would learn his name later. Right now, he was just a man screaming in Korean as they dragged him toward the part of the penthouse Keisha had never been allowed to enter. The locked wing where strange chemical smells sometimes drifted from beneath the door. The screaming stopped abruptly. Keisha tried not to think about why. The other guests were released after questioning. They left quickly, not meeting anyone's eyes. Then it was just Keisha, Kwon, and Dae-jung in that enormous dining room with its view of the Han River sparkling below. Beautiful and cold, like everything else in this world. "Come with me," Dae-jung said to Keisha. Not a request. She followed him to his study. Dark wood. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Classical music playing softly. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. She sat. Her hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her hollow. "How did you know?" Dae-jung asked. Keisha hesitated. She'd spent 3 months in this penthouse being invisible. The black American girl who didn't speak Korean. Who cleaned floors and served meals and disappeared into walls. Now she was visible. That was dangerous. But lying seemed more dangerous. I can smell cyanide, she said. It's genetic. Some people can detect it. Smells like bitter almonds. My grandmother taught me. Most people cannot smell cyanide, Dae-jung said. He wasn't asking. He was confirming something he already knew. It requires a specific genetic trait. Approximately 40% of the population lacks the receptor entirely. Your grandmother. She was a scientist? Keisha's throat tightened. Toxicologist. She worked for the CDC. Dr. Cecilia Brownlow. Dae-jung's eyes narrowed. He opened a drawer. Removed a file. Slid it across the desk. Keisha stared at it. Her grandmother's name was printed on the tab. Her hands wouldn't move to open it. Your grandmother died 5 years ago, Dae-jung said. Carbon monoxide poisoning in her home. Ruled accidental. But you never believed that, did you? The room tilted. How do you know about my grandmother? Because I've been investigating the same people who killed her. The words hit like a physical blow. Keisha grabbed the file. Opened it. Inside were documents. Photographs. Shipping manifests. Communications. Her grandmother's face in a surveillance photo, talking to someone outside a chemical plant. Dates. Locations. And at the bottom an internal memo from a company called Axion Chemical. The Brownlow problem requires immediate resolution. Dated 1 week before her grandmother's death. Keisha couldn't breathe. 5 years. 5 years she'd known something was wrong. 5 years of people telling her it was an accident. That grief was making her paranoid. That she needed to move on. They murdered her, Keisha whispered. Yes, Dae-jung said. She was investigating chemical diversions. Legitimate factories selling to illegal weapons manufacturers. She found evidence connecting American corporations to international arms dealers. She was going to testify. They killed her 2 days before the grand jury hearing. Keisha looked up. Tears were running down her face. She didn't wipe them away. Why are you telling me this? Because the man behind your grandmother's death is the same man behind tonight's attempt on my life. Victor Brennan. CEO of Axion Chemical. He's been using his company to arm terrorists and criminals for 20 years. Your grandmother was going to expose him. I want to destroy him. Why? Because he supplies my enemies. Because he tried to kill me. Because I believe in eliminating threats permanently. Dae-jung leaned forward. And because you saved my life. I pay my debts. Keisha stared at the file. At her grandmother's picture. Dr. Cecilia Brownlow in her CDC uniform. Smiling. Proud. Brilliant. Dead because she'd tried to do the right thing. What do you want from me? Keisha asked. I'm offering you a choice, Dae-jung said. Walk away. I'll give you $200,000. Safe passage back to America. You can finish your degree. Live your life. Forget this ever happened. Or you stay. You help me dismantle the network that killed your grandmother. Use the gift she gave you. It won't be legal. It won't be safe. But it will be justice. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked. Outside, Seoul glittered. Inside, Keisha sat at a crossroads. The easy path. The safe path. Or the path that led into darkness towards something that might be revenge or might be righteousness or might be both. She thought about her grandmother's voice. Your nose is a weapon, baby girl. In this world, knowing poison from food means survival. She thought about Mrs. Beck, the elderly Korean cook who'd shown her small kindnesses in this house of cold efficiency. Who'd given her extra food. Who'd taught her how to bow properly. Who'd treated her like a human being. She thought about being invisible. Being safe. Being silent. If I stay, Keisha said slowly, I do this my way. No innocent people get hurt. We go after Brennan and his network surgically. And when it's done, the evidence goes to real authorities. People who can't be bought. Dae-jung smiled. Actually smiled. You have your grandmother's integrity. That will either save you or destroy you. Which one do you think it'll be? That depends on how well you've learned to survive in a world that wants people like us dead. Keisha extended her hand across the desk. Dae-jung shook it. His grip was firm. Final. The moment she stopped being a victim and became something else. She wasn't sure what yet. But she'd find out. The next morning, Keisha's room was different. Larger. Windows. Actual furniture instead of just a cot. Kwon appeared at her door with a laptop and 3 phones. Mr. Choi wants you to review these files, he said in careful English. His accent was thick, but his meaning was clear. Learn the network. Learn the players. You have 1 week. Keisha took the laptop. Then what? Then we teach you how to move in their world without dying. The files were extensive. Axion Chemical had operations in 14 countries. Front companies. Shell corporations. Legitimate business masking illegal operations. Victor Brennan was 62, married, 3 children, philanthropist, respected businessman. He donated to children's hospitals. Sponsored scholarships. Attended charity galas. And he armed warlords. Enabled mass murder. Eliminated anyone who threatened his empire. Including grandmothers who asked too many questions. Keisha spent that week barely sleeping. Her grandmother had been a scientist. Methodical. Precise. Keisha inherited that. She made spreadsheets. Tracked shipments. Found patterns in the data. Discrepancies. Places where the official records and the actual material movements didn't match. She found her grandmother's original notes buried in the files. Handwritten observations. Follow the titanium dioxide shipments. Discrepancy of 400 kilograms quarterly. Where is it going? Keisha followed that thread. It led to a factory in Eastern Europe. A facility that officially produced paint pigments. Unofficially produced components for chemical weapons. Her grandmother had known. Had documented it. Had died for it. On the 8th day, Dae-jung summoned her again. This time, Kwon was there. And a woman Keisha had never seen before. Tall, Korean, late 30s, with eyes that assessed Keisha like she was a piece of equipment. This is Min Seo, Dae-jung said. She'll teach you what you need to know. What Keisha needed to know, apparently, was everything. How to read a room for threats. How to identify who held real power in a negotiation. How to spot surveillance. How to encrypt communications. How to lie convincingly under pressure. You're a scientist, Min Seo said in perfect English during their 3rd session. You think in systems. That's good. Criminal networks are systems. Find the weak point. Apply pressure. Watch it collapse. Keisha learned. She was good at it. Better than she expected. The same brain that had excelled at organic chemistry applied itself to understanding how illegal money moved through legitimate banks. How shipping manifests could be falsified. How customs officials could be bribed. She learned Korean. Basic phrases. Enough to understand context if not full conversations. Mrs. Beck helped with that, delighted to teach her. You different now, Mrs. Beck said one evening as they practiced vocabulary in the kitchen. Before, you hide. Now, you hunt. It was true. Keisha could feel the shift in herself. The way she moved through the penthouse. The way she made eye contact. The way Kwon nodded at her in the hallways instead of watching her with suspicion. She was becoming something new. Something her grandmother had never been. Dr. Cecilia Brownlow had been a scientist who stumbled into a conspiracy. Keisha was being weaponized deliberately. 3 months after the poisoned wine, Dae-jung took her to her first field operation. A business dinner. Legitimate on the surface. Keisha was introduced as his acquisitions consultant. 5 Korean businessmen. All smiles. All handshakes. One of them was funneling money to Brennan's network. "Tell me which one," Dae-jung had said in the car. "You have 2 hours." Keisha watched. Listened. Observed who spoke first. Who deferred. Who showed nervousness. And she used her nose. One man smelled wrong. Not body odor. Something chemical. Faint. On his hands. After dinner, she told Dae-jung. "The one in the blue tie. He has solvent residue on his hands. Industrial grade. He's been handling something recently. And he kept checking his phone. Every 12 minutes. Waiting for a message." Dae-jung made a call. Within an hour, they had confirmation. Blue Tie was CEO of a shipping company. He'd been diverting containers for Axion. Moving materials that shouldn't exist through ports that didn't ask questions. "Well done," Dae-jung said. That was high praise from him. "We're going to pause here for just a moment, because I need to ask you something. Are you seeing how deep this goes? How Keisha is stepping into a world most people don't even know exists. The next part of this story gets even more intense. She's going to come face to face with the man who killed her grandmother. And what happens in that confrontation will change everything. But here's the thing, I put hours into researching these stories, into crafting narratives that don't just entertain but teach you something about courage, about justice, about what it means to fight for what's right even when the cost is high. If you're getting value from this, if this story is making you think or feel something, please hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you think Keisha should do next. And subscribe so you don't miss what happens when she walks into Brennan's territory. Your support keeps these stories coming. It lets me know you want more. Now, let's get back to Keisha. They spent 4 months building the case. Not with violence. With evidence. Keisha analyzed shipping records. Found the discrepancies her grandmother had started to document. Tracked materials from Axion facilities to end users. Built an evidence chain that was meticulous and damning. But they hit a wall. Everything they had was obtained illegally. It would never hold up in court. Brennan's lawyers would shred it. They needed legitimate evidence. The kind that could survive legal scrutiny. Which meant someone had to go inside Axion Chemical and get it. "I'll do it," Keisha said. They were in Dae-jung's study. Kwon was there. Minaseo. All of them looked at her. "Too dangerous," Kwon said immediately. "I'm the only one who can," Keisha countered. "I have legitimate credentials. Biochemistry background from Howard. My grandmother's reputation. They'll hire me to keep me close. To watch me. They won't suspect I'm the weapon coming for them." Dae-jung studied her. "If they discover your connection to me, you're dead." "They won't. I've been invisible my whole life. I know how to play that role." There was a long silence. Then Dae-jung nodded. "Do it." 2 weeks later, Keisha walked into Axion Chemical's headquarters in Newark, New Jersey. She'd applied for a position in quality control. Her resume was strong despite the incomplete degree. Her interview was confident. Professional. They hired her within a week. Her first day, Keisha walked through those clean, modern facilities and wanted to scream. This place killed her grandmother. These walls. This floor. People walked past her smiling. Drinking coffee. Talking about weekend plans. Normal. Ordinary. Built on bones. She played her role perfectly. Enthusiastic new employee. Grateful for the opportunity. She asked smart questions but not too many. Showed competence but not curiosity. Made friends with coworkers. laughed at jokes in the break room. And she documented everything. The chemicals that didn't match production records. The shipments that went to addresses that didn't exist. The discrepancies in inventory that added up to hundreds of kilograms of missing materials. After 3 weeks, they gave her expanded access. Digital shipping records. She copied them carefully. Small amounts at a time. Sent them encrypted to Dae-jung's servers. After 6 weeks, she was called to the executive floor. Victor Brennan wanted to meet her. Keisha's hands shook in the elevator. She clenched them into fists. Controlled her breathing. By the time the doors opened, she was steady. Brennan's office was massive. Windows overlooking the Newark skyline. Awards on the walls. Photos with politicians. The trappings of respectability. He stood when she entered. Tall. Distinguished. Gray hair. Warm smile. He could have been anyone's grandfather. Ms. Brownlow, he said, extending his hand. I'm so glad to finally meet you. Your grandmother and I knew each other professionally. Her death was such a tragedy. Keisha shook his hand. Looked into the eyes of her grandmother's killer. Smiled. Thank you, she said. I've always wanted to continue her work. They talked for 20 minutes. He asked about her education. Her goals. Her impression of Axion. He was charming. Charismatic. A sociopath performing humanity. I see your grandmother's brilliance in you, he said as she was leaving. I hope you have a long career here. The threat was implicit. Unlike your grandmother. Keisha made it to her car before she broke down. Hands gripping the steering wheel. Tears of rage streaming down her face. She'd shaken his hand. Smiled at him. Pretended. But she'd also done something else. She'd worn a recording device. Everything he said was documented. Timestamped. Secured. She sent it to Dae-jung that night with a message, I'm getting close. 2 weeks later, Keisha found what she'd been searching for. The archive room. Where physical records were stored. Paper trails that couldn't be digitally erased. Original shipping manifests. Financial documents. Communications. She spent another 2 weeks establishing a pattern. Working late. Building trust with night security. Then, on a Tuesday evening, she made her move. The cloned security badge worked. She was inside the archive. Rows of filing cabinets. She had 30 minutes before the next security sweep. She found them. Original manifests showing chemical diversions. Financial records proving payments to shell companies. Communications between Brennan and known arms dealers. And then she found it. The document that made her heart stop. Internal memo. Axion Chemical Executive Letterhead. Subject, Cecilia Brownlow investigation. The CDC matter requires immediate resolution. Dr. Brownlow's scheduled testimony presents unacceptable risk to operational security. Recommend permanent solution. Approved budget, $500,000. Timeline, before grand jury convenes. Signed by Victor Brennan. Her grandmother's death warrant. In writing. Dated 1 week before she died. Keisha photographed everything. Her hands were steady now. This was what she'd come for. Proof. Undeniable. Court admissible. Footsteps in the hallway. She froze between filing cabinets. Security guard entered. Routine check. He walked within 3 feet of her. She held her breath. He left. She waited 2 minutes. Then finished collecting evidence and left the archive. The next morning, she returned to work normally. But something was wrong. The atmosphere had shifted. More security. People whispering. Keisha's instincts screamed danger. She was called to Brennan's office at 11. This time, he wasn't smiling. Sit down, Ms. Brownlow, he said. Not warm. Not friendly. Keisha sat. Heart pounding. But her face showed nothing. We reviewed security footage from the archive room, Brennan said. You were there last night. In areas you're not authorized to access. No point denying it. Yes. You're working with the Choi organization. Not a question. Keisha didn't answer. Brennan's mask dropped. The grandfather disappeared. What remained was cold. Empty. Your grandmother was going to destroy everything I built. I gave her a chance to walk away. She refused. So I removed the problem. There it was. The confession. And Keisha was recording it. She was trying to stop you from arming terrorists, Keisha said quietly. I provide materials. What others do with them isn't my concern. Business is business. Your grandmother didn't understand that. Neither do you. He pressed a button on his desk. Security is coming. You're going to disappear. Just like she did. Keisha stood. No, I'm not. She pulled out her phone. Played back his confession. His own voice admitting to murder. That recording is already uploaded, Keisha said. Multiple copies. FBI. Department of Justice. International Criminal Court. Along with every document I photographed from your archive. Shipping manifests. Financial records. The memo ordering my grandmother's death. All of it. Timestamped. Authenticated. Legal. Brennan's face went white. Then red. Rage replaced calculation. He lunged at her. The door burst open. Kwan and two operatives entered. They'd been monitoring. Waiting. Seconds later, police sirens. Federal agents. Dae-jung had timed it perfectly. Anonymous tip with evidence dump. Overwhelming. Undeniable. Victor Brennan was arrested in his own office. Keisha watched from across the street as they led him out in handcuffs. News cameras already gathering. His empire collapsing in real time. She felt hollow. Not triumphant. Not satisfied. Just empty. Mrs. Beck had died 2 months into Keisha's infiltration. Found dead in her Seoul apartment. Staged as a heart attack. But Keisha had smelled the cardiotoxin. Brennan's people had killed her. Insurance. A message. An innocent woman who'd only ever shown kindness. Dead because she'd known Keisha. Justice wasn't clean. It wasn't satisfying. It was necessary. But it cost. The trial took 8 months. Keisha testified in sealed proceedings. Her identity as an informant protected. The evidence was overwhelming. Brennan's lawyers tried everything. Nothing worked. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit murder. Arms trafficking. Chemical weapons violations. Financial crimes. Multiple life sentences. No possibility of parole. Keisha sat in the gallery when the verdict was read. Across the courtroom, Brennan looked at her. Really looked at her. Recognition and hatred in his eyes. She didn't look away. She thought about her grandmother. About Mrs. Beck. About everyone he'd destroyed for profit. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. How does it feel to bring your grandmother's killer to justice? Keisha paused. Considered. It doesn't bring her back. But it honors her memory. And it protects others from suffering the same fate. She returned to Seoul one last time. To Dae-jung's study where this had all begun. The shattered wine glass was displayed on his desk now. Preserved. A reminder. You did what your grandmother couldn't, Dae-jung said. You survived finishing her work. I couldn't have done it without you. I used you. Let's not romanticize it. Your grandmother's case aligned with my interests. Eliminating Brennan removed a threat. I know. I used you too. We both got what we needed. He offered her a position. Permanent. High pay. Power. Using her unique abilities in his world. The temptation was real. My grandmother taught me to identify poison, Keisha said. That includes knowing when something toxic is disguised as opportunity. I can't live in your world. But I won't forget what you did for me. Dae-jung understood. He gave her a file. Her grandmother's complete case notes. Everything Dr. Cecilia Brownlow had documented before her death. She deserves to have her work completed and published. Do it for her. They shook hands. Not friends. Not enemies. Two people whose paths had crossed in darkness and led to light. Different lights. Different paths forward. But gratitude for the intersection. Now, I want to talk to you directly for a moment. This story, Keisha's story, it's about more than revenge. It's about inheritance. Not money. Not property. But purpose. The things our ancestors fought for. The battles they didn't finish. The question is, what do you do with that inheritance? Do you honor it? Do you run from it? Do you let it consume you or do you let it guide you? Drop a comment and tell me about the inheritance you carry. What did someone in your life fight for that you're continuing? What battle are they passing to you? Share your story. You might inspire someone else who's struggling with the same question. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about your own purpose, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because there are more stories like this coming. Stories about ordinary people who find themselves in extraordinary circumstances and have to decide who they're going to be. Your support makes these stories possible. Don't miss the next one. 6 months later, Keisha was back in Washington, D.C. Different apartment. Different life. She worked for an independent chemical safety organization now. Nonprofit. Advocacy. Using her detection abilities to protect communities from corporate contamination. She visited industrial sites. Used her trained nose to find what others missed. Built cases that forced accountability. Gave voice to people who couldn't afford lawyers. It was her grandmother's legacy. Science in service of justice. She had friends now. Colleagues who shared her values. She was dating someone. Carefully. Learning to trust again. She went to therapy weekly. Processed trauma. Managed nightmares. She was stronger. Not harder. Purposeful. Not consumed. She published an article in a scientific journal. Completing Dr. Cecilia Brownlow's investigation into industrial chemical trafficking. Co-authored by Keisha Brownlow. Her grandmother's work finally public. Acknowledged. Her name cleared. One Saturday, Keisha visited her grandmother's grave. 5 years since the death. Now with answers. Vindication. Justice. She brought the published article. Laid it on the headstone. I finished what you started, Grandma, she said quietly. Your work is published. Your name cleared. Your legacy secured. You taught me my nose was a weapon. You were right. But you taught me something more important. That some things are worth fighting for, even when it costs everything. A woman approached. Middle-aged. Nervous. Excuse me. Are you Keisha Brownlow? Yes. I'm Maria Santos. I lived near the Axion plant in Newark. The contamination caused cancers in our neighborhood. My daughter was diagnosed at 7. The investigation, the shutdown, it saved her life. She's in remission now. Because of what you and your grandmother did. Keisha's throat tightened. The ripple effect. Lives saved that she'd never know about. That her grandmother would never know about. Thank you for telling me, Keisha managed. Maria hugged her. then left flowers at Dr. Brownlow's grave and walked away. Keisha stood there a long time. The grief was still present. It would always be present. But the unanswered questions were gone. The rage had transformed into purpose. She'd honored her grandmother's memory the best way possible. By continuing her work. Monday morning, Keisha was back in her office. New case. Contaminated water supply in a rural Virginia community. Chemical plant upstream. Suspicious illness clusters. Her intern brought in water samples. Young woman. Early 20s. African American. Studying environmental chemistry. She reminded Keisha of herself at that age. The intern watched as Keisha analyzed the samples. Her nose detecting what instruments hadn't yet confirmed. How do you do that? The intern asked. Identify contaminants so accurately? Keisha smiled. My grandmother taught me. It's partially genetic. Partially training. Could I learn? Keisha thought about Dr. Cecilia Brownlow. About Sunday afternoons in a home laboratory. About lessons disguised as games. About a legacy passed down through generations. About weapons that looked like gifts. Let's find out, Keisha said. She began teaching. The same way her grandmother had taught her. Patiently. Precisely. Passing the torch forward. Because that's what inheritance really means. Not what you receive. But what you choose to do with it. How you transform pain into purpose. Loss into legacy. Your nose is a weapon, baby girl. But only if you have the courage to use it. Now here's my final question for you, and I really want you to think about this. Keisha had a choice. Walk away with money and safety, or walk into danger for justice. Most of us face smaller versions of that choice every day. Stay silent or speak up. Play it safe or take a risk for what's right. What choice are you facing right now? What's the thing you know you should do but you're afraid of the cost? Drop it in the comments. Be honest. This community is built on real talk and real support. And listen, if this story inspired you, if it gave you even a moment of courage to face your own battles, then subscribe. Turn on those notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because these stories, they're not just entertainment. They're reminders that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they decide their inheritance matters more than their fear. I'll see you in the next one. Keep fighting your fight.